right, well, good evening and welcome to the May work session for Waseca Public Schools School Board. Today is Thursday, May 5th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. And we are in the Central Building second floor conference room. So tonight on our workshop agenda, we just have 3 topics: staff spotlight, facilities, and the legislative update. And so we'll begin with our staff spotlight. Tonight we have some paraprofessionals from our buildings here to talk with us. And so I'd like to invite you guys to come up and find a seat, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, thanks. As our team comes forward, I just wanted to welcome them again. We're always paying attention to what our staff is doing for our students and our families around the district. And you know, I sent a message out this afternoon. You know, this week being Teacher Appreciation Week is one thing that tends to at times get the attention that it so deserves. But all of our staff members do great work to support our kids in our buildings. And you know, I have to say that it's nearly impossible to catch every week there is for every employee group throughout the course of the year. So it's really important, I think, during this week or American Education Week to make sure we thank all of our staff for the great work they do for our students and our families. So tonight I've asked our team just to share a couple things about their roles and then why they enjoy working here for Waseca Public Schools. One thing I did observe last week or last 2 weeks when we had the other group that was similar size is I think I might suggest to the board that we let the 4 our staff members share, and then we'll do questions after that, so we don't get down too far with one particular employee and then we feel like we've already asked questions they were going to share in their piece. So if that sounds fair,
Sounds
that would
good.
be okay. Excellent. So all right, very good.
I don't know who wants to go first.
Okay.
I can go first. I'm here to speak on behalf of myself and another para who could not make it. My name is Tanya Neal. I am a DCD para at the high school. You guys obviously asked what we love about our job, and the number one thing is the students and the relationships we build. Because I feel like if we weren't here, they wouldn't get the support that they direly need and deserve. But there's also struggles. We deal with behaviors, and those behaviors range from hitting, pinching, hair pulling. We get yelled at, but regardless, at the end of the day, it's always, you know, I'm lacking my words here. She had it really good in here. Their successes. We get to celebrate their success, and to watch them be able to achieve goals is just amazing. It truly is. So, and then if it's okay, I'll go read
absolutely.
Sharon's. So Sharon said, "Thank you for asking us to come speak to you about our job as paraprofessionals. I was disappointed that I was unable to attend and have asked a coworker to read this for me. My name is Sharon Becker, and I have been a para in Mrs. Ross's DCD room at the junior senior high school for the past 4 years. Our official start time of the day is 7:45, but we are usually in the classroom 10 to 15 minutes early to prep for our students. The students start arriving at 7:45. We have students that are in wheelchairs, nonverbal, legally blind, hard of hearing, autistic, and other disabilities. Our students range from age 12 to 21. We spend our days helping our students learn reading, math, and other school subjects, but also teaching life skills, social skills, and help them to interact with their classmates and also interact with the mainstream students. Most of our students need some assistance with eating skills and bathrooming skills. We have 8 paras and 9 students in the room, and we never stop moving. With the wide range of disabilities of our students, we are always learning new ways to help them learn and cope with life. We have been hit, pinched, had our hair pulled, and been yelled at. But these times are nothing in comparison to the hugs, smiles, and laughs that we get from our students. Nothing brings us more joy than watching a student finally understand something that we have been working on, being it reading a word or being able to feed themselves without assistance. There are many days I leave work exhausted, but I am always ready to come back the next day and start all over again. Nothing compares to the joy of seeing my students succeed. Thank you for your time."
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Veronica Verhoeven. I am in Ms. Ross's DCD room as well. This is my 2nd year. I kind of wrote mine out because I'm not the best at speaking, so. When I try to define my job, it's mostly hard to describe it to people. They think they understand what we do, but they really don't. The bare minimum of what we do is assisting students with special or physical needs, whether it be assisting toileting, changing attends, hoyering, physical therapy such as standards, keeping students safe from themselves or their surroundings, feedings, we have a variety, tube feeding, liquid feeding, specialty diets, allergies, along with dealing with a wider range of behaviors. In our room, we see a range of physical behaviors. Unfortunately, we do see hitting and others, themselves or others, running, pinching, refusal to listen to safety rules, a good bit of everything. We do all this while maintaining a learning environment that is flexible and able to reach goals our students set, continue to grow with, and build important life skills. Yet with all the pressure to fill that role, we are usually seen smiling, dancing down the halls, and enjoying our days. Their smiles, as the same rainbow breathing song comes on that we've heard all day, is usually what makes our smiles come on as well. Hearing beep beep across the room for the 1,000th time for the day, while annoying, also reassures us that they are following directions and continuing on with their day. We play games, we learn, and we just find a way to get through the day. More often than not, we are stretched very thin. If more people could see the wonderful moments we have, I think it would be a lot easier for them to be helping hands in our community as well. Yeah.
Thank you. The good definitely outweighs the bad.
Every day.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I can
Stick
go.
with you, yep.
Okay, I got a list too. I'm not good at public speaking, so I've got a messy sheet here. They've said most of it. I'll just say what I have here and we'll be done. My name is Carrie Awan, and I am a para in Mrs. Ross's DCD classroom. I work with students with various disabilities such as Down syndrome, autism, and various others. I have been a para in this district for 16 years and love coming to work. The students make you smile and it melts your stress away. They always have a smile to share with you and they love coming to school to learn. We teach them valuable skills to use in their future. In addition to teaching them reading and math, we teach them job skills. They enjoy doing various jobs such as breaking down boxes, recycling, shredding, filling the pot machine, washing the table, washing, drying, and folding laundry. They love to talk to other staff and take walks and greet other students, and they love to play games. I think their current games are Uno, Sorry, and Trouble, right? Yeah, that's the ones we play the most. Okay, we celebrate everything they accomplish, no matter how big or small. We spend so much time with them that they become your extended family. They are such a joy to work with. The parents and teachers I work with are wonderful. I can always count on someone to help me when I need it. They can also sense when you need help and they will jump in and assist you. If I am not sure about how to solve a problem, I can count on someone to have a suggestion. Just like the kids, they become your extended family. It's not an easy job, as Tanya and Veronica stated, but I love it. Every day is a new challenge, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Thank you. I'm Carrie Wood. I'm out at the senior high school. I am a supervisory paraprofessional, so my role is a little bit different than these gals. However, we all fall under the same umbrella as a paraprofessional in helping students. I manage the study halls at the high school. This year I had the role of doing senior high as well as junior high, and I kind of, when people ask, they kind of think it's mundane that I'm supervising study hall, but I kind of consider myself a professional mom. There's a lot of kids who really just need that extra reinforcement at school, holding them accountable for their homework and missing assignments throughout the day. So I think that's my most rewarding position, is just to be a mom at school. And seeing a couple of kids each year, I kind of pick up a couple that just need the extra push, and watching them walk across the stage is very rewarding, which will be happening in a few weeks for a couple. And then most recently I've been helping with the MCAs. I'm a proctor, so I've been helping out, having a classroom now. I've been able to manage and help manage this week with all the makeup testing. So, yeah.
I do have to add, I don't think anybody actually answered your guys' question when you asked what we like about working for our district. And I would have to say it's all the support from all of you. It's truly amazing, and especially when I speaking for myself, but I feel like I'm speaking for all paras. We get a lot of gratitude from you as our superintendent, and that's amazing because I speak to other district paras that don't work in our district, and it's like, they're like, wow, you get thank yous from your superintendent? Because they're like, well, yeah, we do, and it's actually really nice just to know that we are seen and being appreciated because our jobs are hard. But like I said, they're very rewarding, so.
Well, and it's interesting that we have 4 paras all from the high school tonight, but I want to make it clear that we have paras at all of our buildings, and they're all invaluable to the education of all of our students. But like, how many paras do we have in our district, just off the top of your head, like roughly?
55 or 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any questions for anyone here tonight?
I don't think so.
How many children do you have currently in your classes together?
We have a total of 9 enrolled right now in our room. Right?
Yes.
9, yeah.
9. We were supposed to have 10, but
1 got transferred, yeah. Oh, so.
Mine range. I have 5 to 23. So I tried 33 and I said no. 7th graders. No, mine just range all over the board, but yeah.
Me personally, I do not know a lot. I didn't know a lot about your job, but thank you for coming because it just put my eyes, I have tears in my eyes to just listen to you, and thank you for what you do for those students.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you for having us.
I agree. I mean, as a parent whose child is in special ed, I mean, paras have been integral to his success in education all these years. So thank you all for being here and for sharing a little bit of what your day is like. So.
Oh, yeah. It's very rewarding because I know when I worked at Elm Homes, you know, to see the skills and watch them reach their milestones, it's really fun.
It is.
It's a lot of work.
It is.
Yeah, we don't want to undermine that part of it, but yes.
If we could keep them forever, we would.
oh, that's the sad part. They're so much fun.
How many pairs do we have all together? Does anybody know?
Well, he said about 55.
Between 55 and 60. And,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
55.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. And I would just say that, yeah, the work that you all do is so important to our district, and it's intimidating to come and talk to us all in this environment, particularly on a couple days' notice. So we do very much appreciate it, and you did a great job. So I think,
yeah.
you know, whether it was writing things down or just preparing it in your head, you shouldn't by any means question how you did. You did a great job in sharing about your work. So we really appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. You're welcome to stay for the meeting, but by no means. I know, it is. You can watch it at home too. So.
Very good.
Thanks. Enjoy the last few weeks of school.
Thank you very much.
All right, then. So we're going to move on then to a discussion again about facilities.
Right. Well, thank you for having the opportunity to share about this tonight. And for the Facilities Committee, this will be somewhat of a review conversation. We had a chance to visit about this last night and add and tweak the conversation somewhat just in preparation for the entire board. So I thank them for their time last evening talking about the initial results. So what we want to talk about tonight is the results of our website survey that we were able to engage for our community. This was obviously, you know, in addition, I shouldn't say obviously, but as a reminder, in addition to the phone survey that we're doing, just to give the opportunity, if you did not get called in that survey, to still give input. What we learned was we had some pretty interesting results about what we found from our community. We learned about some things that we know that it was intentionally vague because we're trying to get an initial temperature of where we are on this, but the folks who are engaged want more and they want it now, and so that's important to help get an idea of what those answers are. I would say the reassuring news is that there was very little in the survey that was something we had not discussed as we know we're going to have to answer that question. We know that's something that's going to come up. And so I felt, like I said, reassured that we have a pretty good idea of what questions the community have. It did help us get a gauge on where this group is thinking right now. And so what I'd like to do now is just take you through some of the results in more of a summary format like we talked about last night at the committee. After the meeting tonight, I will share this presentation with you, as well as the full 52-page spreadsheet of responses. And I say that cynically because we got a lot of responses which were really, really valuable. And so I have taken the time, and I know you will too, to go through and read them all and take them all to heart, because what I would appreciate is any feedback you have for me about if there's anything I missed when it talks to, I read through them all and made the list and said this was the themes, this is what I'm gathering, but you may read through that and look at this list and say, you know, you missed this topic that came up 4 or 5 times. Let's make sure we talk about that as well for that process too. So my intention will be to give you as a board a handful of days to go through it and give any feedback on anything I missed. And then both this presentation as well as the survey results will be linked to our website so our community can see the results as well, because there's no reason why they can't see that. The comments were incredibly respectful, incredibly thoughtful, some critical, but in a very professional and I would say thoughtful manner. And so there's nothing there I would even need to redact in terms of the comments. So I appreciate our community's feedback on that too. So we'll take you through these few slides. Really, I want to also just remind us that we still have the results from the other survey coming. We have some results that we're gathering from other community things, such as our financial statements. We've got our facilities 5 and 10 year plan coming up, and so we know we'll be making decisions in the next 6 weeks, not tonight. And so one thing I know is personally, I have to catch myself from getting down one end of the speculation where we're heading, because we know we're missing some information. But rather than give you both survey results all in one meeting, we wanted to space it out over a couple weeks here so we can digest it. So without further ado, Caitlin, do you want to go to the first slide there? So we did get 379 responses, which means, and you're going to notice the math here as it adds up, which means that 379 responses, they responded to at least one of the questions. So they don't all add up to 379 in every single area, because some chose not to respond to some of the questions. 65.9% of our respondents do have kids, students living in their household that attend our Waseca Public Schools, and you can see the breakdown as well. This was a select all that apply, so it's not adding up to 100 piece. You could be in multiple areas. You certainly could own a business and have children in school, right? That opportunity there for us to see. So that's how that broke down. Next slide. So the first question was, what option would be to remodel Hadley, and we obviously provided what the dollar value range was there. We did provide it as a range. We provided what the cost would potentially be on an average home. We did, I wouldn't say miss, but we did leave off some agriculture information. We did leave off some commercial information. The intent was to keep the survey short and just get initial temperature, but the feedback we received was, hey, you missed that. And so and it's obviously well received, so we'll have to get that out. So based on initial results, you can see where we're at here with where we are for strongly opposed versus strongly support and all the way around for that. Okay. The second question would have been to run an addition to an intermediate school, and would you support or oppose this, with the ranges there as well. And you can see the breakdown there. Caitlin, would you just go back to the last slide for one moment? So if you look at the blue and the green, those are the strongly oppose and strongly support windows. And then you go to the next slide again, Caitlin. You can see that this one appeared to evoke more strongly. I feel strongly emotions with people. Either I support it or I don't, from a strong perspective. The remodel to Hadley was a little bit more throughout, a little more even, whereas this one evoked a little bit more absolutely or no way type concept. So next slide here. Okay, so interestingly enough, my math was, no, sorry, go back to where you were, there you go. My math was I was off by 0.5% last night. I apologize to Scott and Dave and Adita. Last night I had 45.6 for both of them, but actually it's 45.1. Remodeling Hadley was 45.1%. of the folks who responded that they support or strongly support. Oppose or strongly oppose, 45.9, and I don't know yet, 9.1%. Very similar with addition to WIS, 45.6% support or strongly support, 46.7 on the opposition side, and 7.7 don't know. Again, less on the don't know here for this one. More folks seem to be willing to take a stance one way or the other on this particular option. So I think that was that could be something we can learn from. Okay, next slide. Oh, a few more of notes on the support or not oppose. 100 and this is where the breakdown falls. So 107 of the responses said they would support either option. Okay, 118 responses said they would oppose both options at this point. 62 said they would only support remodeling of Hadley. They would have been in the oppose for the addition to WIS, and vice versa. 63 responses were only supporting the addition to WIS and opposing remodeling of Hadley. So you can see we're really split down the middle, both in support, oppose, and which of the two options they think are the better option. A couple reasons for that, I think. One of which, and we'll get to the speculation here as we get down to it, but I was reflecting more upon this, and the fact that the cost factor is so similar, or the cost range is so similar, it was really a matter of, do you support us doing something? And then they just kind of picked their preference from there. But interestingly enough, 65% of the folks who responded had students in schools, 35% did not, 45% support. So we'll have to put all that algorithm together to see where that lands. One thing that this survey does not do is create any sort of threshold question about what would be something you could support up to this dollar value, and our Morris Leatherman survey is intended to do that. So in 2 weeks when we come back and we hear those results, we'll have that information to add to the stack with that piece, because the threshold might be below either one of these ranges, who knows, and that really that's added more information to this, or it might be well within. A few more themes on the comments. There were differing views on the building condition. There were comments on the buildings are just fine. Then there was some comments about we need to do something as soon as possible. So again, it was a little bit of polarization there of I think they're just fine. We need to live with what we've got, and it wasn't necessarily, I work very hard. I think it's very important we don't pass judgment on any of the comments that are in there, because none of them seemed overly misinformed. I know what the buildings look like, I think they're okay, versus we need to do something as soon as possible, the health and safety of our students. Is there more information to get out there? Yes, there is, but right now the current knowledge of the community is a little bit split in that regard. Most of the tax comments, I would say, related to the overall taxation in Waseca. It wasn't necessarily just about school taxes. It was about just the overall taxation that we're experiencing in our community right now. And so taxes are high, was the feedback in the survey, and so there's questions about whether now is the right time. And so there was some, I would say, a handful. I'd be curious to see what you see when you dig into it, but some of the responses that I thought were probably, I wouldn't say the most meaningful, but caught my attention the most, were the support. I support you, we need to do something. Now I don't think is the right time to ask for more dollars from our community. So it wasn't a opposition, don't do anything, they're just fine. It was, yes, we acknowledge it, but I just don't know that financially now is the right time. So that was something that I caught my attention as I worked through the survey. Questions needing to be answered still, which we knew these. What would happen to the Hadley building if we abandon it? What would we do with it? Traffic out at the WIS and junior senior high school site. Again, we knew that would be an issue. And there were some questions about how would that impact ag land. And like I said, we attempted that to not make the survey so long and cumbersome, but we do know the community needs and wants that information, and it's not intended to leave anybody out or isolate anybody or have anybody feel like they weren't thought of. But we tried to keep it as short as we could, and That unfortunately was probably something that maybe was an error on my part, but we can certainly have that information to give out when we get to that point. And then more information is needed. You know, there still is the perception that Central is empty. We talk about what we have in this building and what we use this building for, and it's a little bit of a challenging conversation because rooms are all assigned to something, but some of them are only used for part of the day, so it gets to be a conversation of what are we using the building for. So reasonable questions that we have to get more information out and answer when we get down to that point. And then how many empty buildings does the district have with some perception? So there's still a handful of questions about other buildings we have closed in the past. I know it's been a long time ago, but still, relatively speaking, to the community, it's not that long ago. And then we think about what are you using that building for. And I did note that there was a little bit of, and this potentially could be, again, the survey verbiage, but there's a little bit of confusion about the word addition to WIS, implying why do you need more space? The enrollment's going down. And obviously, we're not asking for more space. We just need to replace some space we have that is at the end of its life. And so that would be something we need to clarify as we move forward with that idea. Next slide. Okay, and then some other thoughts here. We did get some suggestions about other variations of using other sites, such as Central, such as some of the other buildings that are empty in town, like the Cashwise building or the old dollar store building. There was some ideas of using those things that, suggestions that were in there. There does appear to be some understanding of the building's needs, but again, like I mentioned, the acknowledgement of a challenging time right now. There were some comments regarding items that weren't district related or lack of information on particular topics, and again, school finance is complicated. We are a government agency, and so I know we get clumped into our overall government taxation. So, because there was some comments about city projects such as, the water park, or if you would put some less money into the police, we could have some more money for this. So, because the community does see us all as one entity, as government in this community, and I think that's something we need to remember, that we're not alone in this. We are working in partnership with our county and our city, and so while that potentially could be cleared up by some information, it's a reminder to not forget to work with those entities as we're moving forward, right? To get working with that. There is some perception of the previous bond money not being used wisely, or it's going to staffing, that type of thing. Again, the complication of how school finance works is hard to explain sometimes without getting down to the nitty-gritty. And then some questions about why we weren't able to maintain the buildings historically. There's that understanding of why didn't you just keep it up as you went along? And again, how LTFM works and how our dollar value works, there's just not enough money to do that, but that's not common knowledge in our community, so that's fair. And then some of the comments that were more supportive mentioned needing a modern, healthy learning environment, and again, similar support for either option. It's one of those, it really appeared from the survey that if you go one way, half the folks would be supportive. If you went the other way, half the folks would be supportive. So it was a little bit of a it almost gave validation to what we were feeling as we were sitting about why this is such a hard conversation. Well, because it is. Yeah. And so I think that's in some way a positive validation for us as a board. So some additional facility planning information. Again, this is just information for you to take in right now. It doesn't necessarily guide us one way or the other than it just is. So I did have a conversation with our county administrator about the property values in Waseca and surrounding townships, because I had asked about about property values and their increase this year. And am I just happened to talk to the 5 or 10 or 15 people that properties went up, or is that real, that it's community-wide? And Michael Johnson did verify it is a community-wide issue. It's because of the statute of where our home values have to be with regard to average market value, and because the inflated home sales have happened the last few years, statutorily we were below the ratio of our average home value to what our market value was. So they had to make an increase and it's an average increase of 16% for in-town. The one I remember off the top of my head was Woodville Township was up 25% on average property value. So that will potentially impact taxation going forward for our our community regardless of anything we do. So that's how that works. One thing that I did hear was that I know the county commissioners are talking about whether or not they do a full levy increase this next year. Based on the property value increase, they might not float it up the entire amount, was something I know Mr. Johnson mentioned. Of course, we won't know that till they do their truth in taxation towards the end of this calendar year. So that could be a wait and see dynamic for us, unfortunately, with that. The federal interest rate also is increased to be expected to increase periodically over the next year or so. 0.25% was what the expectation was now. It's the largest in 20 years. That'll impact people. But the idea is to curb inflation, but it also comes with a cost that we have to just be thinking about right now, our current environment. I have also, it happened, I shared this with the board, with the committee last night. Another consultant happened to come and meet with me. They're doing their sales calls, and in the process of hearing their sales calls, I got some free advice, and so we got their thoughts too on where we are and how we continue to engage with our community, and more acknowledgement about the challenging timing of this fall. We would, based on what they're hearing from around the state, we might be pretty lonely. Somebody for asking for something this fall from a school district perspective. So again, just more information for the pot. And then the Morris Leatherman Survey results. Peter is planning to be here on the 19th to present the results for us. I do have a call with him set up for tomorrow morning. I know we talked last night at the committee about some things we've been waiting for, some updated information about the demographics of the survey, and then I also wanted to, just while I had a chance to catch him, to find out if there's any preliminary things he's hearing or noticing. So I will send that out. If I don't get to it tomorrow, for sure next week in the update where we're at with that. I'll try to update you though tomorrow after I have that phone call. Some of that information we've been waiting on for a couple of weeks about the demographics and stuff, so we'll see how that goes for there. And then my goal would be we finish gathering information, present it all to the board, the facility committee, and the goal would be to make a decision on the next steps really sometime in June, our board work session. There might not be anything we have to vote on, so we probably could decide that at the work session or the regular meeting if there is something we need to take a vote on. And that next step could mean any variety of things. As we're learning throughout the entire process, every new piece of information changes the dynamic just slightly, and we just have to see where we're heading with that perspective. A couple of things that I know we're still waiting on or still working on, I should say, is Elizabeth and Colin are working on a 5 and 10 year our capital facility plan as always, and they've got a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, probably down to E or F or G by now, in terms of what options we could choose to keep our buildings working safely. We know that our staff continues to be supportive of us deciding what we're going to do. I think that I was thinking about this, reflecting on our whole journey from 3 or 4 years ago to where we are now, and we are in a similar spot to several of our neighbors that started this conversation 5 or 6 years ago, one of which I worked for, started 5 or 6 years ago. And as enrollment has changed, as pandemic has influenced things, they haven't done anything either, made decisions to go out for anything yet either, because we want to make sure it's the right time to be respectful of our community. I mentioned this to our district PTO a week and a half ago, and I still feel pretty strongly about this. We need to get a plan, and we need to do something. What that is and what the timing of that is remains to be seen through the course of this entire process. That's what we're here to do in the next several weeks and months. But I think we're in a position of finishing the first round of information gathering. One of the things that our Site Logic was the company that I spoke with, suggested is once we get through June and we have a little more of an idea, this is kind of what we're thinking, that might be the time to re-engage our task force and say, we were kind of locked last time we met. Here's the information you didn't know. We did the survey. Here's kind of what we're thinking. Here's the added information. What now? You tell us. What do you think might be good timing? What do you think might be the opportunity? We would have to have probably conceded that we're not going to go out this fall to take that opportunity because that's going to take some more time to get us down in there. But that certainly is an option. I also think that, again, now I'm getting into speculation mode and into option mode, and we don't have the Leatherman survey yet yet back. And if that one could completely turn this on its head, probably not, but it could. And we have to remember that that's the option we think about. So that's what I wanted to update you all on tonight. I know it's a lot of information, and as I go back to my office after this conversation, I will share these documents with you. So as you have time over the next few weeks and days and weeks, you can take a look at them and see them as well. But again, I do want to thank all the people who took the time to provide input. 379 respondents, 294 of them, if I looked at it correctly, took the time to put a comment in. So that's a lot of time and energy, and people really engaging in our process. So we'll see how that compares. I do appreciate the fact that there's something to be said too for 379 in a community of our size. So that does tell us that even with the outreach that we did, that was the outreach that was the response we could get. And so I don't know if that's good or bad or otherwise, but it just is. There's a lot more thousands of people than who would be impacted by this who didn't get a chance to engage in this. So we'll have to think about that as we get through our communication plan. So if you have any questions now, I'd be happy to answer them for you. Otherwise, this can sit with us and just kind of digest it, and we can get moving on to the next steps as we get through the next few weeks.
When are the 5-year and 10-year plans coming out?
We talked last night, Colin and I talked about maybe we'd have them prepared for the June conversations. Okay. Yeah. And we have the current ones that you've approved in the past.
Right.
But kind of the plans down the road, the what ifs, we're working on finalizing those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I forgot to ask yesterday, how many people could have answered this?
There's no limit.
But you know how many people we have? 10,000 people in.
Yeah, 9,000 in the community,
9,000.
roughly.
Then we got like 4.5% people
Yeah.
to answer.
Yeah. When we were the only reference I have in my time here was some of the Safe Learning Plan information that we sent out over the last year and a half when we were in pandemic mode. And I think the most we received there was 1,100 in that. So we were down a little bit on this one. We got more, that was almost exclusively parents though. So we did get more community members who didn't have kids in school for this one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, and the Leatherman survey was for 400, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Really curious of which, I don't know how you'd have to really pick apart the data a little more. For example, those who support versus those who don't on one side. Is it highly parents of students that are on one side of that versus another, or non-students on one side or another, or is it the small group of business owners versus maybe there's not 400, maybe there's not enough data, but how do some of those different questions correlate to the support or not support, which I think might be valuable for us to know when we make a decision, or if we finally make a plan, which areas do we need to talk to, which areas do we need to communicate more with?
Right.
Is that any of the stuff you have, or will that be later?
We can't. I haven't done any of that yet, other than just read it through and kind of take the gut. But so the results then are uploaded or downloaded, whichever direction it counts in this particular case, into a Google Sheets, into a spreadsheet, so we can manipulate those cells and sort by and answer those questions. The comments that stand out to me, that are felt a little bit more strongly about particularly the WIS edition of, yes, that's the modern way to go, don't put money into an old building, go that way, or don't think about that, it's too busy, it's too much traffic, I don't want my little ones in the same building as the older kids. Those sounded like parents, but that's an assumption. So we have the opportunity to go through and take that apart.
Will the Morris Leatherman one kind of narrow some of that down more?
Yeah.
I think we'll see a better.
Yeah, I don't know.
Get a bit of feel for that.
If you recall, and I have it if anybody would like to see it, but the one that they did for us in the 2015-14 might have been when they did the survey. Yeah, it's very thorough. It'll get into some of those kind of conversations too. My experience with them is they're able to answer questions that were not on the survey.
Okay.
Based on what they find from the correlation of results in the survey.
And maybe better because it might be a more representative survey group as opposed to this is the ones who responded, which
It should be. It should be. That's the intent, and that's what we've been kind of waiting for that. Tell me what the breakdown is. But that's the intent. Yeah, as it matches more of our community as a cross section versus just whoever took the time to do this, which we appreciate this, but that it'll be a different group.
I feel like we need a giant pros cons list or something. I don't, and then just see which one. I don't know. Because I don't know what the right. I mean, clearly it's divided, and I think we as a board are all, like, we don't know what the right answer is either. And
I think one of the, and this is just again, this is a think.
Yeah.
And so this is I don't want to get ahead of ourselves too much, but I think the threshold question that the phone survey is intended to flesh out. If you recall, in 2015, that was the survey that told us 30 million was the target.
Yep.
And not more. And that was what was able to be successful here. So I'm very curious if what they find as the threshold comes anywhere in our ranges.
Yep.
If it's below our ranges, then we know the answer.
Yeah.
Is what can we get done for that amount, if anything, or just nothing right now.
Right.
Or if it's at the bottom end of the range, well then which of those options provides us the better result for that dollar value?
Yep.
Because clearly both options have a range of just getting it done to having some real modernization done. Yep. But that looks different in remodel than it does in an addition for that end of the scale. So I think we'll find out.
Yeah, that'll be interesting, because even just this little bit of information is, I can see myself, I've got...
You need a big pros cons list, don't you?
I do, yeah, because that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's not what I had thought.
Yeah.
One of the things that I thought at the facilities meeting yesterday is how Waseca, a small community in southern Minnesota, and this type of an issue mirrors what's going on nationally. It's almost
exactly.
It's almost a carbon copy. So I don't know if that's coincidence or that's just the way it is right now, or.
I think it's good. I think it's a little. This is kind of a reality check.
Yeah.
Which I think was very helpful.
Yep.
Even though it's just the couple questions.
Yeah, I agree.
So no.
All right. Any other questions or comments about this topic? All right. We'll move on to the really easy topic of what's going on in the legislature.
Well, easier because, and thank you all, and again, thank you everyone for participating in that survey. It does not go in unnoticed, and there's a comment that I remember, and I think it was probably a comment in opposition, but it did say, thank you for taking the time to engage the community, and then I hope you listen, right? And so I think that's important, and we're doing that in good faith. Not to be too repetitive to the committee conversation, but you've all heard this before. We have the end in view. We know we need to do something with our facilities. We don't have the end in mind, right? That's what we're doing right now in gathering these options. So, very good. Okay, legislation. And I don't have a presentation for this one because it's a little bit more discussion based, and again, legislative committee, you're going to hear some repeat conversations here, but there actually has been some activity since even Monday, what's going on at the state. So first thing that I think is important to notice is to remember is that one thing that did get done over the last weekend is the House and the Senate did come together and the governor signed it into law this last weekend. The unemployment insurance, they repaid the federal unemployment insurance fund, which we had depleted in Minnesota, took a loan out from the federal government and were able to pay that back. So they used that. So that got done. One thing in that same bill, same legislation, was frontline worker pay, and so they did approve frontline worker pay. It does include education employees at this point. There are a series of criteria for how someone qualifies based on how many hours you worked for a school district, based on whether or not you had the option to work from home or had to come in and work with people who were out of your household. Did you receive any other unemployment during that time? And then there is some income threshold. You have to have earned lower than a certain threshold. And so in first glance, most of our employees should qualify for that based on what I'm seeing right now, which is a benefit for them. That's really, really positive. It's still in discussion, though, as of, that was Sunday that happened. The Department of Labor and Industry is still working on what that application process looks like. So the employees will all have to apply for this. And once the application is online, they will have 45 days to do that, to apply for that. And then after that, however the time is, they'll get their money. The employer, what we focus on here, and particularly with the business office, is what is the employer's role in this. And right now, what's called out in the law is we have 15 days after the application is posted to tell our employees it's posted. To say, hey, by the way, you may qualify, do the application, here's where you can find it. So we have 15 days after that's posted to get that out to our employees. It's what's unclear in the legislation is what the district's role is, if any, in verifying the information. Because what maybe they thought of, maybe they didn't, is that a lot of people could be applying for this who may or may not really qualify. And so I anticipate our HR department will unfortunately have to then verify something along the way that person was an employee, they worked this number of hours, and it shouldn't be too challenging in theory, but it's going to be time consuming. It really will be. All right, it's just going to be what it is. But that's something they did, but but maybe it'll be self-verification. Who knows how that works for everything? But in as it has evolved, I'm also I'm grateful in the sense that our school employees qualify, and they might have the opportunity to receive that potential extra dollar value from the state. So still some questions on that, but it's there, ready to roll. One thing that did not get in this particular piece of legislation, but is still being pushed by a couple particular representatives, is unemployment insurance for our hourly staff. They are proposing that our hourly staff, such as our paras, our food service workers, our workers that don't have what they consider a 12-month contract, could be eligible for unemployment during the summer months. And that being a law that we'd have to pay them unemployment over the summertime, which the first year there's funding for that to backfill the districts, because we would have to then put the bill for that. But after that, it goes away. So after that, we'd just be left footing the bill for that going on. And we potentially could have employees who may be less likely to want to work in the summer because they're collecting unemployment during that time. It's a challenging thing. The other part of it that is unique is there was one particular proposal that said it could be district's choice to provide unemployment for those staff members over the summer, which then allows it district versus district. Do I want to work for Waseca because they're going to offer me that? I'm not going to work for Owatonna because they don't. It's going to pit district against district in that sense too. So I don't see that going anywhere this time, but it's something that is, they see it as a retention strategy, that if an employee is receiving unemployment on their, similar to a layoff for, say, a building and grounds worker who's laid off of the winter months, in some areas they have the opportunity to receive unemployment. And so something to think about with that regard, but we're watching. I don't think anything will happen with that this session, but it's there. And retention is an issue right now, so I see why they're thinking about it. There's a data privacy bill currently in the Senate. I don't believe there's a companion in the House yet, or at all, but this one is something that, again, with the Parents' Bill of Rights, is something that's going to be something we have to pay attention to. It's about technology and data privacy, and the crux of the bill, the real intention of the bill is to protect student data from vendors and selling information, which we 100% support. Absolutely support that. Yeah. The part that got a little bit sideways for school districts was the opportunity for parents to opt out of any of our instructional or operational systems in a school district. So you could be enrolled in Waseca, but you could say, I don't want to be part of Infinite Campus, I don't want to be part of Schoology, I don't want to be part of pick your thing. So that would essentially make it really challenging for us to do our work in that regard. In terms of, would we go all back to paper pencil? We don't even have paper textbooks for some of our stuff, and how do we keep track of a student information system and attendance and all that kind of thing if the student opts out of that? So I think that was heard. There's been an amendment that I think is making its way through that essentially eliminates that part of it and sticks with the holding the technology vendors accountable, which we're all about that. We think that's a great thing. So that's really good. The page amendment has pretty much all but stalled at this point. You maybe have seen that. That was the language to the amending the Constitution of Minnesota to changing access to an equitable or to a free public education to a right to a quality education, which again in intent is a positive thing, but the actual operational impact of those words, but it puts it pretty challenging. How do you define quality? The lawsuits that are going to come out of that is pretty challenging potentially. So, but again, that's stalled now. That's been several years in the works with not any traction. So I think that's probably one that's not going to be something we have to think through for the foreseeable future at this moment. But we'll see. The couple updates since Monday on the House did pass their education omnibus bill last week. You saw that. Wrote $1.1 billion approximately towards education was their proposal with that piece too. Lots of opportunities for funding in there. Also a lot of mandates and a lot of things that we would have to report differently and pay. So quite a few things that would make life more challenging for districts in terms of how to use our funding for what we think is most appropriate for us locally. Similarly, and we've dealt with that a lot in the pandemic of, you feel like there's a lot of money there, but it has to be used for this, which may not be appropriate for our community. Running through that. The governor's proposal for the amended budget was $780 million, I believe. And then now the Senate, they started listening to their omnibus bill on Monday. And really all that, all that included was, I say all that because it's pretty simplistic. Literacy training, particularly something called LETTERS, which is an acronym for, I don't know what, but it's an acronym for literacy training. It's a specific science-based literacy program, which is actually really good. In fact, we're exploring whether or not we're going to send some staff to that here in Waseca. So it's a good thing. $30 million doesn't go very far statewide in terms of trying to train staff on something like that, but it's out there. But as of yesterday, the Senate still had not passed that omnibus bill. There's still some discussion about whether or not they want, they're starting to get a little bit more traction on, do we add a little bit more dollars for other things, which Senator Chamberlain was not really interested in that at the beginning, but I think he's starting to work to the negotiation standpoint. So what we're watching is this week we're watching the Senate probably finishing that up, getting their bill going. And then both houses coming together, appointing an education conference committee, which will be representatives from both bodies will come together and try to basically reconcile the two bills and see what they can come of it. And then if they come to an agreement, then that goes back to both bodies for a vote. If they happen to both pass it, then it goes to the governor. I'm not overly hopeful with a May 23rd end date. This year, particularly it being a bonding year. They don't have to, by law, do anything. They could just discuss it, and it could stall, and it could move on, and nothing happens, and then that is just what it is. That's certainly well within their right. And so as we get now to the 5th of May and coming up in the last 2 weeks, I don't know where they'll end up with that. But we'll find out here in the next couple of weeks. The only other addition, really, that I think it might have come via email earlier this week to you all is, so one idea that MSBA, MASA, and Education Minnesota have all come together and are really trying to get traction on is a special education cross subsidy. And there's a press conference. They're holding a joint press conference next Monday, kind of to share that again, to say let's really consider doing something for that. And the purpose of that conversation is that is something that's called out as they should be funding for school districts, but they don't at the rate that it's expected. So our general fund has to then subsidize that. Cross-subsidy is what it's called. And for our district, that currently sits about $1.94 million in our year. So of our $30 million budget, 1.94 million is our cross-subsidy. So if we were able to get funded fully for special education services, that would be a significant support to our budget. Again, I'm not overly hopeful, to be perfectly honest and straightforward. I don't know that I'm hopeful that that's going to get addressed this particular session, but the fact that it continues to be a conversation is important. I think it's I think it was a very appropriate response this year because we did receive some percentage on the formula increases last time. So in order to say, yeah, we appreciate that, we're not going to ask for an additional percentage there particularly, but let's tackle this, which is a big issue for districts, and I think that would be something I'm hopeful we get some response on, but we'll find out. 1.94 million would significantly impact our budget if we were to able to receive some support in that sense. So we're waiting to be seen. The legislative committee, Charlie and Julie and Grant have been busy trying to keep up with that, and then it not keep up with stuff and then not have happen. We did have the opportunity to, I had the chance to when I was at the Capitol, stop in and talk with our senator, with Senator Jasinski, and give him, our feedback on that opportunity. Charlie had the opportunity to talk to Representative Petersburg, and we're going to have him come and visit with us after the session's over. A little busy right now, trying to get things done, and just have some opportunity for him to visit with us too about what he's seeing and what he's learning, what he's thinking going forward too. So I appreciate the connection there as well. So we're moving forward, but I wanted everyone to kind of have the sense of where it sits, of what's happening right now at the state. Probably the special ed cross subsidy would be the biggest impact to Waseca right now, because the percentage on the formula, that's helpful too, but our enrollment is a little bit of an offset on that, which makes it a little bit more challenging to calculate what that would be for us. But also just maintaining that we're not getting any more mandates, that we have to add more things that we have to do. Just layers of reporting is good for us as well. So both of those are conversations, so that's good. So any questions you have, I'd do the best to answer them as I could, and move on.
I forgot to ask this at our committee meeting on Monday, but is there any talk anymore about funding lunch or the food programs?
Good question. Actually, that came up on Wednesday at my MASA meeting, and unfortunately, the short answer is no. It has come up and intentionally has not been something they found. They found it's getting a lot of support, as in yes, we should do it, but there's not any kind of funding being identified right now.
Okay.
So I do worry a little bit that that's going to be a districts, you all have to do that, and it's an unfunded mandate. I get a little bit worried about that, but we're not there at this point right now, so that's good. Along those lines, compensatory aid, kind of hold harmless for compensatory, also is not getting any aid, any legs right now either.
I have a question on the special ed funding. Is it more that the state feels they shouldn't or don't need to pay any more towards that, or is it more of we'd like to do it, but how are we going to afford it?
I can only speculate, but over the years it has been, that sounds good, we just don't have the money. I don't think anybody has flat out said we don't need to put priority there. They just have not been able to find the funding to do it. And as special ed cost has increased, it's similar to some of our other conversations about inflation. That gap just gets bigger and bigger the longer they don't close it. So I think there's a lot of sympathy for the conversation, but it's going to take a lot of dollars to close that gap.
But we have to come up with the money.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, it's essentially an unfunded mandate.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is.
Right.
Yeah, you have to do it. We just aren't going to pay for it.
Right.
Even
We're
though we
gonna
say
make you
we're
do
going to
it,
be
Right.
Right, because that was the conversation. They said,
Well, it's-
we'll fund it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the part I don't understand. I mean, I get when they say, well, how are we going to pay for this? Well, we have to find a way to pay for it.
Right, and I think the that is one of the examples, there are several of them, title is another example, of federal law not aligning with state law and state legislative action. And ultimately, the states have the control over that funding,
Yeah.
so they don't necessarily always have to follow, apparently, the federal law. That's how that works. And so, which is, in a lot of ways, the fact that we have state control over education is a good thing.
Yeah.
We get a lot of benefits for that too. But this is, you're dead on, exactly right. And when we listen to our team talk about the kids they're taking care of course we're gonna do that.
Yeah.
Of course we would,
Right.
right? But it costs money.
Yep. Any other questions or thoughts about the legislative system? Or update? I don't know. It might be a lot of talk this year, or this session, and not much action. So.
Yeah, I guess one other thing that Deb Henton, she's our MASA Executive Director, did comment on Monday is that there's a lot of distraction right now at the legislature because of the redistricting, because of a record number of retirements and resignations prepared for this fall. They are already in election mode.
Okay.
And so they're getting into even finishing up these next 3 weeks. It's a second priority to making sure we're getting campaign stuff ready. And so that is,
So sad.
that's the reality of, but that is the reality of it, yeah. Yep.
Great. Thank you. I think that's everything. All right, so that ends our work session. Next meeting is May 19th, so regular meeting. So
Very good.
thank you.
Thank you.